So we have early votes in the books in Florida. And at this point, I think this is more an exercise of nowcasting than looking at polls. I would encourage anyone listening to this and watching this not to look at polling anymore in Florida or in any other state where we have a significant number of early votes in, which includes Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin at this point, as we record this in the middle of October. So the question is, what is a more accurate model of Florida? What we saw in 2022, which was a significant trend toward the Republicans, or what we saw in 2016, 2018, 2020, which were narrow Republican victories. The truth is, we don't know yet. The early voting numbers indicate that the Democrats aren't going to quite hit 2020 levels, where Biden got 48%, over 48% of the vote in Florida, lost Florida by 3.5 points. So that's a concern, but they're not like 2022, where the GOP won the state in the governor's race by 19 points and the U.S. Senate race by 16 or 17. They're not going to be like that either. Now, here's a caveat. Large parts of the state have been messed up by tropical weather, by hurricanes in the last few weeks. And the areas impacted most significantly by Hurricane Helene tend to be more Republican areas. So the Big Bend, which used to be very Democratic when I was growing up, in fact, didn't really completely flip until the 2010 election. That's very Republican now, but there are not many voters there. Coastal Pinellas County, not the interior Pinellas County, but coastal Pinellas County tends to be very Republican. And we've seen an increasing Republican trend in places like South Tampa, Davis Island, which got really messed up by Helene, Longboat Key, Anna Maria Island in Manatee and Sarasota counties. Now, what about Milton? Because Milton was a storm that affected a wider swath of people, maybe less dramatically than Helene did in the areas it impacted, but still a wider swath of people. So the areas most impacted by Milton and that are not really back online tend to be more Democratic areas. They tend to be areas in the city of St. Petersburg, areas around USF in kind of northeast, north central Hillsborough County, even the New Tampa area, which has become more and more Democratic recently, and areas in Tampa itself. And as I said, in Pinellas County, yes, there was the areas that were impacted really dramatically by Helene: the coastline, the Barrier Islands, Clearwater Beach, Madera Beach, Indian Rocks Beach, Treasure Island, St. Pete Beach. They didn't take quite the hit from Milton that the areas to the east of them did. And then when we look at the Orlando area, there were significant impacts. But those impacts, I think everybody is basically getting back on the grid now. Power has been restored to most people. Internet, not necessarily. This is a key thing a lot of the metrics don't pick up. People tend to get power back now in storms before their internet, because of the way their lines are buried or whoever their internet provider is, and it's not one universal provider for an area, can get them back online. So there are people who have had power for several days in the Orlando area who do not have internet back. And then obviously Brevard County and St. Lucie County. St. Lucie County is the ultimate bellwether county in Florida. And in this era where the Republicans have been pulling away in Florida, it's kind of very indicative of statewide trends. And then Brevard tends to be more Republican than the state as a whole. But there are parts of Brevard County that have Democratic pockets that were impacted: Rockledge, Cocoa, and such. So how the storm will impact us and voting, we don't know. But we do have early vote totals, so I would encourage people not to look at polling data.